At some point, the pressure comes back. Not as urgency, not as anxiety, not as panic. It comes back quietly, politely, almost reasonably, reasonable enough to not raise alarms. You don't feel rushed anymore. You don't feel overwhelmed. You don't feel like something is wrong. But you start feeling available, capable, open. The silence no longer hurts. The body feels lighter. The tension that was there before has softened. And in that space, a thought appears. Not loud, not intrusive, just calm enough to feel trustworthy. This is where the misunderstanding begins. Because the discomfort is gone, or at least reduced, and the mind reads that as progress. If it doesn't hurt anymore, it must be over. If it feels lighter, it must be ready. If staying still no longer feels necessary, then staying still starts to feel wasteful. The absence of pressure gets interpreted as permission. Less tension becomes a green light. Relief starts to look like readiness. Rest starts to look like delay. And action begins to feel responsible. Not impulsive, not desperate. Responsible, measured, almost mature. The thought doesn't say, act now. It says something softer, something harder to question. You're okay now. You're not reactive anymore. You could probably move. It feels earned, like a natural next step, because the body isn't resisting, because the noise is lower, because the silence feels stable. But stability is not the same as orientation, and calm is not the same as direction. This phase doesn't announce itself when it's finished. It doesn't signal completion, it just loosens. And that loosening is easy to misread. Not everything that relaxes is ready to move. Some things loosen before they align. Some phases soften before they point anywhere. Some internal pressure drops not because the process is complete, but because it has stopped fighting itself. The body releases tension before the system knows what to do next. And signals don't always mean go. Sometimes they just mean less resistance. The mistake isn't wanting to move. The mistake is assuming that reduced friction equals readiness. Acting here doesn't break anything. That's why it's dangerous. Nothing collapses. Nothing fails immediately. You can move. You can decide. But it's not an instruction. It's a signal. That release is real. You can choose something and it might even feel good at first. Because movement replaces stillness, and direction replaces ambiguity. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the noise returns. The subtler signals get covered. The system tightens again. Not because the action was wrong, but because it was early. This is usually when people say, I don't know why, but this feels familiar. They've been here before, acting from relief, mistaking calm for clarity. The urge doesn't shout. It doesn't demand. It suggests. It frames itself as responsibility, as momentum, as not wanting to waste time. Staying still now starts to feel indulgent, almost lazy, because you're not in pain anymore. Because you're not overwhelmed, because you feel capable. But capability is not the same as readiness, and availability is not the same as direction. This is the most confusing moment of the phase. Not the heavy one, not the silent one, This one, where everything feels calm enough to move, but not clear enough to know where. Most people don't notice that this is part of the cycle. They remember the pain. They remember the urgency. They don't remember this moment. The reasonable one. The moment where acting felt like maturity, like recovery, like progress. Until later, when the friction returns, when the quiet signals are gone again, and they realize they moved, not because something was ready, but because it felt better than waiting without discomfort. The need to act doesn't always mean it's time. Sometimes it just means the pressure has dropped enough to hear yourself think again. Relief can feel like an invitation, but not every moment of relief is an invitation to move.